1 year had passed since the truth was released. 1 year since the files from the Chamber of Buried Futures spread across every network in the galaxy. 1 year since everything changed. Du Hun stood on the bridge of his new ship, the Dawn of Terra. It was larger than the Starlight Accord, built for war but hoping for peace. Behind him flew a fleet of 100 vessels, some human, some alien, all united under a single flag. They called themselves the Human Accord. Through the window, Dohan could see Vila Prime growing larger. The station looked the same as it had when he first visited, but everything else was different. The Galactic Council was broken. Half its member species had walked away in anger and shame. The rest fought among themselves, blaming each other for the lies they had all helped to protect. "We are receiving a transmission from the station," Hannah said from her console. Her uniform was different now. She wore the rank of commander, earned through a year of hard work and harder battles. "They are ready for us." Dohan nodded. "Take us in." The fleet docked at Vila Prime. Dohan led his delegation through the same halls he had walked a year ago. But this time, no one looked at the humans with fear or hatred. Some aliens nodded respectfully. Others bowed their heads in shame. A few reached out to touch Dohan's arm, whispering words of thanks. The truth had set them free too. The Grand Assembly chamber was packed with representatives from 100 worlds. They sat in a great circle, their eyes fixed on the center stage where Dohan and his team waited. Floating cameras broadcast the scene to every corner of the galaxy. Taiwu stood at Dohan's right side, his wounded shoulder long healed, his face no longer young but still eager. Sung stood at his left, gray-haired and steady as stone. And behind them stood representatives from 12 alien species who had joined the Human Accord. The Keth, the Orth, the Tirani, and others who had suffered under the Council's rule. Hannah stepped forward to speak. Her voice was clear and strong, carried by speakers to every ear in the chamber. "For 12,000 years you watched us. You watched us struggle in the mud. You watched us die from plagues you could have cured. You watched us kill each other in wars you could have prevented. And through all of it, you did nothing. You hid in your stations and your palaces, hoping we would destroy ourselves." She paused, letting the words sink in. "We did not destroy ourselves. We survived. We grew. We reached for the stars just like you always feared we would." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Some aliens shifted uncomfortably. Others leaned forward, listening intently. "You could have welcomed us," Hannah continued. "You could have taught us. You could have been our friends and partners. Instead, you chose fear. You chose lies. You chose to erase us from your maps and pretend we did not exist." She turned slowly, looking at the gathered representatives. "We are here today to tell you that the time of lies is over. The time of fear is over. Humanity is not going away. We are part of this galaxy now, and we will take our place among the stars." From the back of the chamber came a slow, mocking clap. Dohan turned to see High Arbiter Moloch being led in by guards. He was smaller now, his power stripped away, his robes replaced by simple gray cloth, but his eyes were still dark and cold. "Pretty words," Moloch said. "But words do not change what you are. You are predators, dangerous, unpredictable. The Council was right to fear you." Dohan stepped forward. "Maybe you were right to fear us," he said quietly. "We can be violent. We can be cruel. We have done terrible things to each other and to our own world." Moloch smiled, thinking he had won, but Dohan was not finished. "We are also kind. We are brave. We love each other so much that we will die for strangers. We dream of futures we will never see and work to build them anyway. We take broken things and make them whole again." He gestured to the alien representatives standing behind him. "Look at them. The Keth, who you called savages. The Orth, who you dismissed as too old and weak. A dozen species that you buried or ignored or tried to control. They stand with us now, not because we conquered them, not because we forced them, because we offered them something you never did." He looked directly at Moloch. "We offered them hope." The chamber was silent. Moloch's smile had faded. Dohan turned back to the assembly. "We are not here to rule you. We are not here for revenge. We are here to offer you a choice. You can hold on to your fear and your lies and watch as your council crumbles to dust. Or you can join us in building something new, something better. A galaxy where no species is erased, where no people are left to suffer alone, where the maps do not end at the edge of someone's fear. He raised his hand, and on every screen in the chamber, a new image appeared. A map of the galaxy, complete and whole, with Earth shining bright in its corner of the stars. The maps end where humanity begins, Doan said. But only if you want them to. We are ready to draw new maps, together. One by one, representatives began to stand. The Earth Elder. The Keth Warriors. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years, now rising together. When the vote was called, it was not even close. The Galactic Council was dissolved. In its place would rise a new galactic forum, built on truth instead of lies. Hope instead of fear. Humanity would have a seat at the table, later. When the speeches were done and the celebrations began, Dohan stood alone on an observation deck. The stars stretched out before him, endless and beautiful. Hannah found him there, as she always did. They are updating the maps, she said, standing beside him. Earth will be on them by tomorrow. Doan nodded slowly. It feels strange. After everything we went through, it ends with paperwork and votes. Hannah laughed softly. Would you prefer more explosions? Maybe, he smiled. But no, this is better. This is what we fought for. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Do you think they will ever truly accept us? Hannah asked. The ones who feared us for so long? Doan thought about it. He thought about Moloch's cold eyes and the hidden chambers full of buried secrets. He thought about the species who had been erased, the lies that had lasted for millennia, the fear that had shaped the galaxy for so long. Some will, he said finally. Some will not. It does not matter. We are not doing this for their acceptance. We are doing it because it is right. He turned to look at her. Her face was lit by starlight, tired but peaceful. The galaxy is large, he said. There is room for everyone. And humanity will be here, doing what we have always done. Building, growing, reaching for something better. Hannah smiled. Even if it takes another 12,000 years? Even if it takes forever. They stood together as the station turned slowly through the void, carrying them toward a future that no one had mapped. Behind them was Earth, small and blue and precious. Ahead of them was the galaxy, vast and strange and full of possibility. The maps had ended where humanity began, but humanity was just getting started. The moon had no name, only a number. It orbited a dead star at the edge of the galaxy, so far from civilization that it did not appear on any public map. This was where the council buried its darkest secrets. Dohan looked at his team. They sat in the cargo hold of a stolen transport ship, checking their weapons and equipment one last time. Hannah was there, her face calm despite the fear she must have felt. Tai Wu had come despite his wounded shoulder, refusing to stay behind. And beside them sat Sergeant Sung Beek, the oldest soldier on the Starlight Accord, a man who had fought in 3 wars and carried scars from all of them. 6 rebels from Thesa's forces completed the team. They were hard people with hard eyes, each one carrying a personal hatred for the council. 2 minutes to landing, the pilot announced. Du-Hun stood. You all know the plan. We get in, find the vault, download everything, and get out. No unnecessary fighting. No heroes, he looked at each of them. But if something goes wrong, we do whatever it takes to get the truth out. The galaxy needs to know what the council has done. Everyone nodded. The ship dropped through the thin atmosphere and landed in a valley between 2 mountains of gray rock. Ahead of them, built into the side of a cliff, was the entrance to the Chamber of Buried Futures. It looked small from outside, just a metal door set into stone. But Doan knew that it went deep, very deep, into the heart of the moon. They moved quickly across the rocky ground. A nebulous storm was passing overhead, filling the sky with lightning and strange colors. It would blind the council's sensors for the next 2 hours. After that, they would be seen. 2 hours to change history. Hannah worked on the outer door while the others kept watch. The security was good, better than anything she had seen before, but she was better. After 5 minutes, the door hissed open. Inside was a long tunnel lit by pale blue lights. The walls were smooth metal, cold to the touch. Their footsteps echoed as they walked. They met their first guards at the second checkpoint. Sung moved like water, fast and silent, taking down 2 of them before they could raise an alarm. Taewoo handled the third, his wounded arm not slowing him at all. The rebels dealt with the rest, no alarms. Not yet, they went deeper. The tunnel opened into larger rooms filled with machines and storage containers. Each container held files, millions of them, records of species that the Council had erased or destroyed over the millennia. Doan felt sick looking at them. So much death. So many lives ended because someone in power felt afraid. "The main vault is ahead," Hannah whispered, checking her scanner. 50 meters. They moved forward. The final door was massive, 3 meters tall and made of metal so thick that nothing could break through it. But Hannah had the codes they had stolen from the Athenaeum. She entered them with shaking hands. The door opened. Inside was a single room, smaller than Doan had expected. Shelves lined the walls, each one holding data crystals that glowed with soft light. In the center of the room was a pedestal with a single crystal on top, larger than the others and glowing bright gold. "That is it," Hannah breathed. "The original human assessment." Doan walked to the pedestal and picked up the crystal. It was warm in his hand, almost alive. Inside this small object was everything the Council feared about humanity. Everything they had tried to bury. Hannah connected her device to the room's systems and began downloading. Data flowed across her screen, file after file of secrets that had been hidden for thousands of years. Then the lights turned red. "Alarm," Sung said, raising his weapon. "They know we are here." Heavy footsteps echoed from the tunnel. Many footsteps. Doan could hear voices shouting orders in alien languages. "How much time do you need?" He asked Hannah. 3 minutes. You have 2. He turned to the others. "Hold the door." The first wave of guards came fast and hard. Sung and the rebels met them with fire and fury, pushing them back into the tunnel. Taiwo fought beside them, his young face set with determination. Bodies fell, but more kept coming. Doan fired his weapon until it ran dry, then picked up another from a fallen enemy. The room filled with smoke and the smell of burning metal. Time seemed to slow down. "Done," Hannah shouted, but before they could move, a new sound filled the chamber. A deep voice, old and cold, speaking through hidden speakers. "Captain Park, I have been waiting for you." The guards stopped firing. They stepped aside, making way for a figure that walked slowly through the smoke. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and eyes like black holes that swallowed light. He wore robes of deep purple, and when he moved, the air seemed to bend around him. Dohan had seen pictures of this being in the Council's broadcasts. High Arbiter Moloch, the supreme leader of the Galactic Council. "You were never meant to find this place," Moloch said. His voice was like ice cracking. "But I suppose it was inevitable. Your kind has always been too curious for your own good." Doan raised his weapon. "Let us leave, and no one else has to die." Moloch laughed softly. "You think this changes anything? You have some files. Some old records. The galaxy will not care. They will believe what we tell them to believe." "Maybe," Doan said. "Maybe not." He looked at Moloch, at the guards surrounding them, at the ancient walls of this secret place where so many truths had been buried. Then he smiled. "You still do not understand us, do you?" He pressed a button on his communicator. Across the galaxy, on every rebel network, every neutral station, every open channel, the files began to broadcast. Everything they had found. Everything the Council had hidden. The truth about humanity sent to every corner of known space. Moloch's face changed. For the first time in perhaps 1,000 years, the High Arbiter looked afraid. "What have you done?" He whispered. "What humans always do," Dohan said. "We fight. We survive. And we never, ever stay buried." The guards raised their weapons. Doan looked at his team, at these brave people who had followed him into the dark. "Get to the ship," he said quietly. "I will hold them here." "No?" Soong stepped forward. "We go together or not at all." Hannah took Doan's hand. Taiwu moved to his side. The rebels formed up around them. Moloch watched them with something that might have been wonder. "You would die for each other," he said. "For strangers?" "For an idea." "Yes," Doan said simply. "That is what makes us human." For a long moment, no one moved. Then the ceiling exploded. Rebel ships dropped through the hole. Guns blazing, cables falling. Thesa's voice roared over the radio. "Get on, humans. We are leaving." Dohan grabbed the cable and held tight as it pulled him up into the sky. Below him, the chamber of buried futures burned, but the truth was free, and now the galaxy would have to face it. The Starlight Accord was damaged and running low on fuel. Council ships had chased them across 3 star systems, firing warning shots that sometimes hit. Taiwu had taken a piece of metal to his shoulder during one attack. He sat in the medical bay now, his arm wrapped in bandages, his face tight with pain but his spirit unbroken. Doan stood on the bridge, staring at the navigation display. They had nowhere left to run. Every station, every port, every friendly planet had been closed to them. The Council had declared them criminals and spies. No one would give them shelter. No one except the rebels. The Keth Nebula was a cloud of dust and gas that stretched across 100 light years. Ships could hide there for decades without being found. It was home to outcasts, criminals, and those who had rejected the Council's rule. It was their only hope. "Take us in," Dohon ordered. The ship dove into the nebula. Colors swirled around them, red and gold and purple, beautiful and deadly. Sensors went blind. Communications went dead. They were flying through a maze with no map. After 3 hours, a voice crackled over the radio. "Human vessel. You are entering territory controlled by the Keth resistance. State your purpose or be destroyed." Doan took the communicator. "This is Captain Doan Park of Earth. We are being hunted by the Council. We request sanctuary." "Silence." "Then follow the beacon. Do not try to run. We will be watching." A small light appeared on the navigation display. Doan followed it through the swirling clouds until they emerged into a clear pocket of space. A station waited there, built from the hulls of old warships welded together. It was ugly and rough, but it was real. And it meant they might survive another day. A shuttle carried Dohon and Hana to the station while Taiwu stayed behind to guard the ship. They were met by a squad of armed soldiers who searched them for weapons, then led them through dark corridors that smelled of oil and metal. Their destination was a command center filled with screens and maps. In the middle of the room stood a figure that made Doan's breath catch. She was reptilian, covered in scales the color of dried blood. A long scar ran down the left side of her face, cutting through one eye that was now white and blind. She was missing 2 fingers on her right hand. She looked like someone who had fought a war and paid for it with pieces of herself. "I am Thesa," she said. Her voice was like gravel scraping stone. "I lead the Keth resistance. You are either very brave or very stupid to come here, human." "Perhaps both," Doan said. Thesa laughed, a harsh sound with no warmth. "I like that. Sit, tell me why the Council wants you dead." Doan told her everything. The blank maps. The Athenaeum. The files they had found. Thesa listened without speaking, her one good eye fixed on his face. When he finished, she leaned back in her chair. "So you found the Void Protocol," she said. "I wondered when your kind would discover it." "You knew about this?" Hannah asked. "We have known for a long time. The Council hides many things, but they cannot hide everything." Thesa stood and walked to a screen on the wall. She pressed a button and an image appeared. "Let me tell you what they are really afraid of." The screen showed a timeline. Millions of years of history marked with the rise and fall of species across the galaxy. "Most species evolve slowly," Thesa said. "It takes them 100,000 years to build their first cities, 1,000,000 years to reach the stars. They are careful, patient, predictable." She pointed to a small dot on the timeline. Then there is humanity. The dot expanded into a line that shot upward like a rocket. 12,000 years ago, you were living in mud huts and hitting each other with bronze swords. Today, you have ships that can cross the galaxy. Do you understand how impossible that is? Doan said nothing. He had never thought about it that way. The council ran simulations, Thesa continued. They asked their computers what would happen if humanity was allowed to grow. Every simulation gave the same answer. In 500 years, you would match them. In 1,000 years, you would surpass them. In 2,000 years, you would rule the galaxy. So they erased us? Hana said quietly. They did more than that. They stopped watching you. They hoped you would destroy yourselves with your wars and weapons. They thought you were too violent to survive. Thesa smiled, showing sharp teeth. But you did survive. You always survive. That is what terrifies them. Doan felt something cold settle in his stomach. They let us suffer. All those centuries of war and plague and death. They could have helped us. Yes, but they chose to watch and wait instead. Thesa handed him a data chip. This contains the location of the Chamber of Buried Futures. It is the Council's most secret vault, hidden on a moon at the edge of known space. Inside that vault is the original assessment of humanity. Everything they feared. Everything they tried to hide. Doan took the chip. It was small, lighter than a coin, but it felt heavy in his hand. Why are you helping us? He asked, Thesa's scarred face twisted with old anger. Because the Council has buried my people too. Because they have killed millions to protect their power. Because I want to see them fall. She leaned close. But more than that, Hume and I want to see what happens when the galaxy learns the truth about your kind. Doan looked at Hana. She looked back at him, her eyes bright with determination. We need to get into that vault, he said. It will not be easy. The security is heavy. You might die trying. Doan thought of Earth. He thought of all the humans who had lived and died, without ever knowing they had been watched, judged, erased. We have been dying for 12,000 years, he said. But we never stopped fighting. We never stopped reaching for the stars. He stood tall. We will get into that vault, and we will show the galaxy who we really are. Thesa watched him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Perhaps you will, she said. Perhaps you will? The Athenaeum of Yol was the oldest library in the galaxy. It floated in deep space, far from any star, powered by machines that had run for 100,000 years. The Orth species had built it long ago, and they guarded its knowledge like dragons guarding gold. Doan had convinced the Council to let his team visit. He said they wanted to learn about galactic history. He said they wanted to understand their new neighbors. The Council agreed, happy to keep the humans busy with old books. While they watched and waited, they did not know what. Doan was really looking for the starlight. A cord docked at the Athenaeum 3 days after leaving Vila. Prime, Doan brought only a small team. Hannah for her skills with languages and computers. And a young security officer named Taiwu Shin. Taiwu was barely 25 years old, with eager eyes and a loyal heart. He would follow Doan into fire if asked. Today, Doan might ask exactly that. The Athenaeum was beautiful in a cold way. Its halls were made of white stone that glowed with soft light. Shelves reached up to ceilings so high they disappeared into shadow. Floating platforms carried visitors between levels, silent as ghosts. An old Orth met them at the entrance. His skin was gray and wrinkled, and his 4 eyes were clouded with age. He moved slowly, leaning on a staff made of polished metal. I am Archivist Bellows, he said. His voice was like dry leaves rustling in wind. I will be your guide today. What knowledge do you seek? We want to learn about the early history of the Council, Dohan said smoothly. How it was formed. What species joined first? That sort of thing. Bellows studied him for a long moment. Something flickered in those cloudy eyes. Understanding, perhaps. Or warning. Very well, the old Orth said. Follow me. He led them deep into the library, past sections filled with alien writing and strange artifacts. Taewoo looked around with wonder on his face. Hannah kept her eyes forward, her mind already working on the plan. They reached a reading room filled with old terminals. Bellows showed them how to access the public archives, then stepped back. "I will return in 2 hours," he said. "Please do not wander. The restricted sections are dangerous for those who do not know the way." He left them alone. As soon as he was gone, Hannah pulled out a small device from her pocket. "I mapped the security systems on the way in," she whispered. "There is a restricted vault 3 levels below us. It contains records marked with something called the Void Protocol. That is where we need to go," Doan said. Taewoo glanced at the door. "What do you need me to do, Captain?" "Stay here. If anyone comes, tell them Hannah went to find a bathroom and I went to stretch my legs. Give us 30 minutes. Taewoo nodded, his young face serious. "I will not let you down." Doan and Hannah slipped out of the room and moved through the halls like shadows. The Athenaeum was quiet, almost empty. Most of its visitors were scholars who spent their time lost in ancient texts. Not watching for intruders, they found a service lift and rode it down into the depths of the station. The air grew colder. The lights grew dimmer. When the doors opened, they stepped into a hallway lined with sealed doors. Hannah checked her device. "Third door on the left." She worked on the lock while Doan kept watch. His heart beat fast in his chest, but his hands were steady. He had done harder things than this. He had fought in wars, lost friends, buried soldiers under alien skies. Breaking into a library was nothing. The door clicked open. Inside was a small room filled with data terminals. Hannah sat down and began to work, her fingers dancing across the controls. Doan stood beside her, watching lines of alien text scroll across the screen. "I found it," Hannah breathed. "There are thousands of files here. Observation logs, reports, analysis." She paused, her face going pale. "Doan, these records are 12,000 years old. They were watching us during the Bronze Age. What do they say?" Hannah read quickly, translating as she went. "Species H0771, native to third planet of Sol system. Displays unusual adaptive capabilities. Shows high aggression, but also high cooperation. Able to form bonds with other species, including predators. Survived multiple extinction-level events." She scrolled down. "There are notes from scientists. They call us unstable, unpredictable. They say we change too fast, that we do not follow normal evolutionary patterns." Her voice shook. "Doan, they were afraid of us. Keep reading." The last entry is from 12,000 cycles ago. It says all records of species H0771 are to be deleted. All observation posts are to be removed. The Void Protocol is now in effect. Hannah looked up at him. "They erased us. They erased everything." A sound came from the doorway. Dohan spun around, hand reaching for the weapon he was not allowed to carry. Archivist Bellows stood there, his old eyes no longer clouded. They were sharp and bright with something that might have been fear. "You should not be here," he said quietly. Dohan stepped in front of Hannah. "We needed to know the truth." Bellows was silent for a long moment. Then he walked slowly into the room and closed the door behind him. "Your kind frightened them," he said. "Not with weapons. Not with ships. With what you are. You adapt. You grow. You refuse to die when you should." He leaned closer. "The Council looked at your future and saw their own end. So they chose to forget you existed. They hoped you would destroy yourselves before you reached the stars. But we did not destroy ourselves," Doan said. "No," Bellows almost smiled. "You did not. And now they do not know what to do with you." An alarm began to sound somewhere in the distance. "Council security," Bellows said. "They know you are here. You must leave now." Hannah grabbed the data chip she had been filling with copied files. Dohan took her arm and moved toward the door. "Why are you helping us?" he asked Bellows. The old Orth's eyes were sad. "Because I am tired of lies. And because I want to see what happens when the truth finally comes out." Dohan nodded once, then ran behind him. The alarms grew louder. But in his pocket, Hana carried the proof of what the galaxy had done to humanity. And Doan swore that soon everyone would know the truth. Doan Park had waited his whole life for this moment. He stood on the deck of the diplomatic ship Starlight Accord, watching the massive space station grow larger through the window. Vila Prime, the center of galactic civilization. The place where 1,000 alien species came together to trade, talk, and make peace. And today, humanity would finally meet them. Duhan was not a young man anymore. Gray hair touched his temples, and lines marked his face from years of hard service. But his eyes were sharp, and his back was straight. Earth had chosen him to lead this first delegation, and he would not fail. "Captain, we are cleared for docking," said Hannah Yun from her station. She was younger than him by 20 years, with quick fingers and an even quicker mind. As the ship's communications officer, she had spent months learning alien languages. Now she would be their voice among the stars. "Take us in," Dohan said. The ship moved smoothly into the docking bay. Through the window, Dohan could see aliens of every shape and size. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some looked like insects, and others looked like nothing he had ever imagined. All of them stopped to watch the human ship arrive. A welcome party waited for them at the airlock. The leader was a tall creature with a hard shell and many legs. His eyes were like black glass, and his mouth parts clicked when he spoke. "I am Ambassador Kevel of the Tyranny," he said. The translator in Doan's ear made his voice sound almost friendly. "Welcome to Vila Prime. The Galactic Council is honored to receive humanity." Doan bowed his head slightly. "Thank you, Ambassador. We are honored to be here." Kevel led them through long hallways filled with strange sounds and stranger smells. Aliens watched them pass. Some seemed curious. Others seemed afraid. A few looked at the humans with something that might have been hatred. Dohan noticed all of this, but said nothing. They arrived at a large circular room. The walls were dark, and the floor was polished like a mirror. In the center of the room, a holographic display flickered to life. Stars appeared, thousands of them, connected by glowing lines that showed trade routes and borders. "This is the map of known space," Kevel said proudly. "Every system, every planet, every species all recorded here. It has taken us 10,000 years to build this map." Doan stepped closer, studying the display. It was beautiful. He could see the territories of the Tyranny, the Orth, the Keth, and dozens of other species. Each one had its place in the galaxy, but something was wrong. He looked for Earth. He looked for the sun. He looked for the small corner of the galaxy where humanity had lived and grown and dreamed of reaching the stars. There was nothing there. Just empty blackness. "Ambassador," Dohan said slowly, "where is human space?" Kevel's eyes flickered. His mouth parts clicked faster than before. Yes, there seems to be a small error in our records. A clerical matter. It will be corrected soon." Hannah moved to stand beside Doan. She was frowning. "A clerical error? You have mapped 10,000 years of history, but you forgot where we live?" "These things happen," Kevel said quickly. "The galaxy is very large. Please, let me show you to your quarters. You must be tired from your journey." He hurried them out of the room before they could ask more questions. That night, Dohan could not sleep. He stood at the window of his quarters, looking out at the stars. Something was very wrong here. He could feel it in his bones. A soft knock came at his door. He opened it to find Hannah standing there with a small device in her hands. Her face was pale. "Captain, I found something," she whispered. "I intercepted a transmission between Kevel and the Council High Chamber." "Show me." She played the recording. Kevel's clicking voice filled the room, translated into words that made Doan's blood run cold. "The humans are asking about the void designation. They cannot know. Increase surveillance. If they discover the truth, we must be ready to act." The recording ended. Silence hung in the air. "Void designation," Dohan repeated. "They have a name for it." "This is not an error, Hannah. They erased us on purpose." Hannah nodded. "I searched their public databases. There's nothing about Earth, nothing about humans. It is like we never existed until today." Doan turned back to the window. Out there somewhere was the truth? Someone had decided that humanity should be forgotten. Someone had wiped them from the maps of the galaxy, but why? We need to find out what they are hiding, he said. Quietly. If they know we are looking, they will stop us. It could be dangerous, Hannah said. Dohan smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We traveled across the stars to find our place in the galaxy. We did not come this far to be erased. He looked at Hannah, and she looked back at him. In her eyes, he saw the same fire that burned in his own heart: curiosity, determination, the refusal to accept lies. Find out everything you can, Dohan said. Search their archives. Hack their systems if you must. Somewhere in this station, there is a record of what they did to us. And I want to know why. Hannah nodded and slipped away into the darkness. Dohan stayed at the window, watching the stars. The galaxy was vast and old, filled with secrets buried deep in time. But humanity had clawed its way up from the mud of Earth. They had survived ice ages and plagues and wars. They had built ships that could cross the void between stars. They would not be erased so easily. Whatever the Council was hiding, Doan would find it. And when he did, the galaxy would learn what happened when you tried to bury humanity in darkness. They always found their way back to the light.